I don't know whether it's day or night, literally, because in Manila it is 12:40 a.m. So I woke up from a 2-hour nap at 12:30 this morning, mildly panicking. I stood up because I knew that I didn't have this speech written yet. Although it was really clear in my head that I wanted to talk to you about 3 things. The honor code, the state of our world today, and what we can do about it. I stared at the whiteness of my computer, and nothing came, so I needed coffee. I thought I could just go to the tap room, right? Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. It was closed, so I asked Mike at the front desk, where can I get coffee? He said, Wawa. I was at Nassau Inn. I just got in from the tropics. I hadn't really slept, and it is cold. Super bad combo for a Wawa run. Well, that woke me up. And as I was putting my jacket on, I felt exhilarated. And I told my classmate, Leslie, a challenge really wakes me up. You don't really know who you are until you're forced to fight for it. And it's been one big fight for my values and my profession since 2016. And it's made me stronger, as Princeton and Nietzsche have taught me. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. In less than 2 years, you heard from Jill, my government in the Philippines issued 10 arrest warrants against me. I've done nothing wrong except to do my best at the profession that's really made me who I am. This is my 36th year as a journalist. My life since... My life since 2016, the year that Rodrigo Duterte and Donald Trump were elected, has really been a roller coaster. You have no idea what I went through to be here today. A little bit, Jill told you a little bit, but I will tell you more. And I want to really say kudos to Jennifer Caputo and Ben Chang, because they got on my roller coaster with me. Thank you, thank you. In order to travel anywhere now, I have to get approval from the courts that hold the 7 charges against me. So 3 of the 10 have already been thrown out. By Wednesday, February 16th, I had 6 approvals, but it was already a few hours before I was supposed to get on my nearly 16-hour flight direct from Manila. Then I got my 7th court order that my lawyer and I couldn't understand. It ordered the government, which was prosecuting me, to respond in 5 days for my urgent motion to travel. That would mean I couldn't be here and would have missed all of you today. So it was, and this is normal, a non-denial denial. People told me, okay, well, chill, right? It's really disappointing, but what can you do? I said, I'm gonna leave anyway. I really wanted to come. And then my lawyer said, well, if you go, you can get arrested and jailed. Okay, so anyway, I kept working. That's how I cope. I work harder. My lawyer decided to send, he asked me, I said, please pull out all the stops. So he sent an urgent motion for reconsideration asking the court for a virtual hearing, which it granted less than 12 hours after our request, and 10 minutes before the courts closed the next day on Thursday, I got my 7th approval. I barely made it to the flight because, this is like a mind game, and the way you deal with it is you don't pack until you get the 7th approval. So I had to really run to the airport. Here's another thing. You know that direct flight I told you about? It wasn't flying the next day. So Jennifer booked me on a 13-hour flight to LA, right? And since my connecting flight was 6 hours later, was an upside. My youngest sister lives in LA, and we got dinner. The thing that they don't tell you is that even in the worst of times, there are upsides. Like when I got on the escalator in LA, you know, that big sign that says, "Welcome to the United States." And I just hugged the air around me because you do not know what freedom feels like until you almost lose it. The court order just took away my comfort and my sleep, yeah. As soon as I landed in JFK, I changed and was 30 minutes late to the first event that Ben had helped organize. It was a visit to Toms River North, where I graduated 40 years ago. It was a public high school that prepared me here. There's a great T.S. Eliot quote: "We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all of our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the very first time." I think it's why we love coming back, why we come to reunions, because we get to walk. I get to walk in the footsteps of my college self, and you can see that transformation and see how far you've come from then to today. You remember the people who have changed you, and there are many of you here today, and you cherish that bond, especially in adversity. The end of all of our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. So it is so wonderful to see you all here today. And really, how wonderful to be back in the place that gave me the foundation for nearly everything I do. And how I hope you'll see we will fight the greatest battle of our time. Best weapon, the honor code. When I took over as the head of the largest news organization in the Philippines, I explained the Princeton Honor Code to about 1,000 journalists in ABS-CBN. It's how we each pledge on our honor not to cheat, and we take responsibility for the world around us. That if we saw someone cheating, we would report it. That became the foundation for our 1,000 journalists in our fight against corruption. I took a zero-tolerance approach, and the honor code made it personal to every one of us. I became a journalist because I believe that information is power. It's how we get justice. The death of democracy began when journalists lost our gatekeeping powers to the technology platforms that not only abdicated responsibility for protecting us, but these platforms also destroyed democracy by destroying the facts for immense profit. Like the age of industrialization, and you saw this in Julia's work, some of it, there's a new economic model that brought new harms, a model Shoshana Zuboff called surveillance capitalism. When our atomized personal experiences are collected by machine learning, organized by artificial intelligence, extracting our private lives for outsized corporate gain. Highly profitable micro-targeting operations are engineered to structurally undermine human will. Think about that. It is a behavior modification system in which we are Pavlov's dogs experimented on in real time. And the consequences are disastrous. This is happening to you, no matter how smart you are. It is happening to the entire world. Engagement-based metrics of these American tech companies mean that the incentive structure of the algorithms, which is really just their opinion in code implemented at a scale that we could never have imagined, this is insidiously shaping our future by encouraging the worst of who we are, the worst of human behavior. Studies have shown Jill said that, and these are a 2018 study I remember from MIT, lies laced with anger and hate spread faster and further than facts. I've said this sentence now repeatedly over the last 6 years. Without facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without these, we have no shared reality, no rule of law, no democracy. That same methodology that was used against me in the Philippines, this is bottom-up, exponential attacks on social media that at least 90 hate messages per hour, 90, that pounds a lie 1,000,000 times to become a fact. That lie is journalist equals criminal. That came bottom up and then top down from our president a year later. But let me bring it to you. This is also how January 6th happened. I'm going to show you a study by the Election Integrity Partnership. This was done by academics in the United States. This is how Stop the Steal, how the meta-narrative was seeded a year later on RT, and then picked up. The mainstreaming began by Steve Bannon on YouTube, seeded on closed networks, and then kept spreading, picked up by Tucker Carlson on Fox, and then dropped by the super spreaders, QAnon, which strangely enough has a connection to the Philippines, and then coming top down with President Trump in November last year. There is no difference between online violence and our physical world. Right? They are one and the same. Online violence is real-world violence. If you can make people believe lies are facts, you control them. This is why we have the rise of tyranny all around the world. In my Nobel lecture, I said that an atom bomb has exploded in our information ecosystem, and because we need to prevent humanity from tearing itself apart, we need a new global coalition like the UN, or its precursor, when Woodrow Wilson founded the League of Nations, the reason he won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1919. Wilson also enacted laws like the Federal Trade Commission Act and the Clayton Antitrust Act. He reclaimed power from huge corporations and promoted competition. How would he deal with surveillance capitalism today? Because that is where all our problems connect. You may see it as political, but it isn't. It is safety, privacy, antitrust, and what we all talk about a lot is content moderation. These are not separate issues. The platforms want you to debate content moderation down here. Because if you're stuck down here, then you don't move further up. Upstream, you have the algorithms. This is the operating system of that. And then you have to go even further upstream to its root cause, our data. Surveillance capitalism. We cannot solve the global existential problems if we don't win the battle for facts. That's the foundation of everything. And here's the thing, we cannot have integrity of elections if we don't have integrity of facts. In 79 days, the Philippines will vote in an existential moment for our democracy. The frontrunner for president is Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the son of the dictator, ousted by a people power revolt 36 years ago. He's back, partly because history was changed in front of our eyes. You kind of know this. With networks of disinformation that we exposed, but it has convinced Filipinos, some of them, they deeply believe this, that Marcos, the dictator, was actually the greatest leader the Philippines has ever had. And you'll actually recognize the campaign promise of Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Make the Philippines great again. So in the absence of any law to protect users, that, by the way, is also an abdication of the democratic governments like the United States to create something like a Better Business Bureau to protect our minds. Well, what do? We have to act with what we have. I loved listening to the people, the awards before. We have to do what we have, Claire. Exactly what you said, right? So, remember the two systems of thinking, right? Thinking fast, thinking slow. Daniel Kahneman said that. This is what we're doing 79 days before the election. We're not willing to just do nothing, because that is not an option. This is a combination of thinking fast, thinking slow, of trying to protect the facts, right? This is the pyramid we formed. It's a whole of society approach. Hashtag battle for facts. We call it our Avengers Assemble moment. It has 4 layers. This is the first time that 14 news organizations are working together, actually creating content that we can share, we can repurpose. These are the fact checks. There are 2 content layers, the fact checking, atomized content, and then the research layer, right, which is meaning a little bit more. Every week they will come out with hashtag break the trend. They will analyze, research, show you the data of how you are being manipulated, how we Filipinos are being manipulated. So the fact checks are created, and then the data pipeline, and this is what makes it different, because you gotta fight tech with tech. The data pipeline comes from each of our communities. It courses through the fact-checking layer. When it's checked, it moves up, and we each share each other. The news organization sharing each other. What a novel idea, right? And then it creates this, the mesh. What's the mesh? This Courage On Coalition has 89 member organizations. It's a human rights organization because they're getting killed, right? And this layer combines civil society, NGOs, businesses, finally speaking, the human rights organizations with the church. The church is there, faith groups, religious groups, and there's many more. That mesh layer is our response to algorithmic amplification. We work together, we collaborate. The goal is collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. And then that data pipeline will continue to bring it to the research groups. There's 7 that will look at disinformation research. It's your election integrity partnership that gave us that idea. And then as they come out with hashtag break the trend every week, we bring here the layer that's been quiet for too long, the law. Remember, if you don't have facts, you can't have rule of law. That layer has already started filing cases. Because if impunity is allowed to continue, it will only get worse. So we need to stop the impunity of lies. This virus of lies needs to stop, and that layer needs to do both strategic litigation and tactical litigation in order to protect these people trying to protect the facts. Someone who worked for Facebook actually told me, yeah, but Maria, fact checks don't spread. Yes, I know. Because that's the way social media is designed. So guess what though? Filipinos know this is a moment we could lose everything. So it's quite emotional for us. And that's exactly what every member of this group, hashtags FactsFirstPH, is going to do. The honor code is the foundation of this pyramid because it's an appeal to every Filipino to pledge to work against corruption and lies and clean up each of our areas of influence. Then we slowly connect our realities together, because that's also missing, a shared reality. We connect it together. That's what we call it the mesh. We need to mesh. We are all connected. Journalists are under attack, are discredited, because we push back against the lies. We hold power to account. But in this existential battle for facts, we can't do it alone. So you have to ask yourself the same question that Raptor and I confronted in 2016. What are you willing to sacrifice for the truth? I know my answer. When I returned to Manila on Tuesday, I know that I could go to jail for the rest of my life. But worse than that Damocles sword, that threat hanging over my head, is the idea that I didn't give it my all when it mattered. Right now, when so much is at stake. What's happening in my country has already happened here, and in every democracy around the world. We were the first domino to fall in May 2016, followed about a month later by Brexit, and so on and so on, that led to the November election of Donald Trump. If we fall further now, we won't be alone. You have elections in November. You cannot have integrity of facts. You cannot have integrity of elections if you don't have integrity of facts. That's a truth. So, this is it. Bring your superpowers. Princeton has a lot of superpowers. Don't give up. Because when you do, you make all of us just a little weaker. You have to act before it's too late. You must join the battle for facts, the battle for truth. The time to act is now. Thank you for having me here.